Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner of Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Future Tech Podcast. My name is Josh Thomas and I'm here with my good buddy Dustin Byington from Wanchain. And Wanchain is rebuilding finance with private cross-chain smart contracts. Hello, Dustin.
Hey, Josh. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. We're really glad to have you here. You know, Wanchain has been making a lot of news in the last few months, and everybody's really excited about it. But for those of our audience that may not be so familiar, could you give us a little bit of an idea of what you're doing and why it's so important?
Sure. Well, Wanchain was started by Jack Liu, who is the technical co-founder of Factom. And Jack Liu Factom has this multi-chain architecture and was one of the kind of very early pioneers of the space. And so Jack's been thinking about how we can connect the various blockchains for quite some time now. And he's come up with a very pragmatic solution that is unique in the fact that it's this cross-chain technology that we built allows us to connect to any chain in a permissionless manner. And that means that none of these chains need to upgrade their software either via a soft or a hard fork. And so we don't need permission from any of them to connect. And it's also fairly simple or straightforward compared to a number of the other solutions. And so we think that we can roll the solution out quite rapidly and scale it quite effectively.
So in other words, you don't have to knock on your neighbor's door to borrow the cup of sugar. You can just go straight into their cupboard.
Yeah. We're not, the way it works is we're not taking any sugar if you're using for sugar to mean digital assets. And so like the way to think about it is that, so say take Ethereum, for example, the way that Wanchain would connect with Ethereum is that we would lock say you have 5 Ether that you want to move onto Wanchain. That 5 Ether gets locked on Ethereum, and then 5 new Ether tokens get minted on Wanchain. But the thing that's interesting about it is that there's no single party that's in custody of your funds or that's in custody of the locking of your funds. Your funds are locked on Ether by a group of validators who not any one of them has control of your funds, and they all collectively have an economic interest to behave honestly. So what we do is we remove the central counterparty risk. There's no single point of failure here. You're not giving your coins to Dustin Byington or Jack Liu. You're giving them. The trust is still in a network. The trust still remains with the blockchain technology.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And so, you're here in Austin, Texas, and I'm here in Austin, and so we kind of run around in the same circles. And it seems like everywhere you go, you have a following. Why do you think that is?
I think, the other thing we haven't really even talked about too is privacy. We just launched the world's first smart contract platform with ring signatures as part of our mainnet launch in Miami on January 18th, and the Crosschain is coming in version 2.0. And so I think it's the collection of a few things. One, this 2018 is kind of the year of both privacy and cross-chain, and we hit both of those. We've got and then the third one is, we're also say we're cross-culture. So Jack's from China. He went to Peking University, which is renowned as the Harvard of the East, and we have really strong ties to their PhD program. And so we've got 40 engineers right now working out of our Beijing office. But then I'm here with the Austin office. And so we say we're not only cross-chain, but cross-culture. So I think there's a lot of excitement too about this, being able to bridge these two mega players in the blockchain industry and the world economy between the U.S. and China, and having this very global project. And the fourth is just is also the strong team. We do have a team of proven executors that have shipped projects before in the blockchain space, and then we've also the ring signatures with the smart contract platform with ring signatures that we deployed. I mean, that's live. That exists. That's not a pipe dream. That's not a main net. That's not even a test net. And so I think those four, the privacy, the cross chain, the cross culture, and the team make for kind of a very compelling story at this moment in time.
Yeah, agreed. And so you also have a major announcement that just came out today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, we were really excited to announce the Kyber Wanchain decentralized exchange, and so that's going to, one of the things that we think a lot about is not only solving problems in ways that are actually going to be not just solving technological problems, but solving end user problems. And so there's a number of decentralized exchanges that exist today, but they're not widely adopted because they're not very usable. They lack things like liquidity or transaction speed, or the fees are really high, or they just they lack broad access to a wide number of tokens. They're limited to the small sort of galaxies of tokens. And so the Kyber Wanchain partnership and decentralized exchange announcement, we're really thrilled because together we think that we can solve some very serious systemic problems in the industry around the decentralized exchange of tokens, and about keeping as much of this activity on chain as possible. And so
tell me quickly, what are some of these problems that you're partnering up with Kyber to solve?
So Kyber, we can use Kyber's technology. So Wanchain is a fork of Ethereum, so it's its own blockchain. Kyber is currently running on Ethereum, and so it's fairly straightforward for them to port over their technology onto Wanchain. But the benefit that they're going to get from being on Wanchain is instead of being limited to the Ether and ERC20 tokens, with Wanchain they get access to Ether, ERC20, and all of the protocol tokens that were as a result of our cross-chain technology. And they also get the advantage of the privacy, the ring signatures, and the privacy protection. What Wanchain gets in return is we get access to their liquidity pools, because if we have this, we have cross-chain technology, but if there's only a couple dozen tokens trading around on there and someone wants to buy a couple thousand, then the cross-chain technology is not all that useful. So the liquidity is something that we've been really focusing on, is getting more liquidity into our system, and Kyber is built specifically for that. And then also the instant transactions, and that's because the way that their order pools work is that's one of the big fundamental problems too with decentralized exchanges is often order speed is very slow, and then there's also some.
Right. That's something that I've certainly noticed multiple times in trying to purchase, deposit, withdraw tokens. I won't name any names, but some of the exchanges out there are less than stellar at their speeds. Now, Dustin, you're using this term cross-chain technology an awful lot, and I just want to come back and back up for a moment, and let's assume that our audience has a base level understanding of blockchain technology. When you're speaking of cross-chain, could you explain a little bit about the difference of what you're talking about and what that exactly means, just in case there's someone out there that's still a little confused?
Yeah. There's so many the verbiage in the spaces. The language is very vast, so it's good to define all our terms here. So the blockchain industry today it looks very much like the days of the intranet, before a global internet existed that was connecting all of the various networks. You can think of like Bitcoin as an intranet, Ethereum as an intranet, Litecoin as an intranet. These networks only understand, Litecoin only understands Litecoin. Bitcoin only understands, Bitcoin and the colored coins that are on top of it. Ethereum only understands ETH and the ERC20s. But the problem is that these networks it's very challenging for these networks to communicate with each other beyond some kind of like basic atomic swap functionality like Decred and Lightning Network have. So what Wanchain, Crosschain is part of this, or another term that gets used is interoperability. We're a part of the Interoperability Alliance with Aeon and Icon. So those are kind of like very synonymous terms. And the idea is like that we want to be able to connect these chains, that we want to take them out of their the Stone Age, the intranet. We want to be able to connect them all together. Today, when the way that we often connect chains is by going off-chain, by going to a centralized exchange that whom we give up our custody to, and whom facilitates the exchange of tokens. And so Crosschain, one of the big fundamental goals is for these chains to be able to communicate by doing it in a way that remains on-chain, that's highly trusted and highly secure. And so there's a lot of people that are working on this problem, but our approach is a little unique in that you can think of it like an analogy that has some unintended sort of parallels, but it's a good analogy nonetheless, is that of a casino. If you go to the casino and you give them $100, they give you back a chip. Say it's a green chip. Then you can go out and spend all night gambling this chip around, moving it around, placing different bets, and then you might come back with 10 green chips or 5 red chips or 2 orange chips. You bring them back to the cashier, and then they give you money, whatever you ended up with. So you sort of deposit money, you get a receipt, and then that receipt is sort of like as good as cash if people trade these receipts around. But then the receipts are also bearer instruments. Anybody with this receipt can go exchange it for that original asset. And so in the same way, when I kind of talk about like locking the ether, the idea is that, and then printing the proxy token, that's sort of the equivalent of you taking your ether and depositing it into Wanchain. And where that proxy token is your receipt, but it's a bearer instrument. Anybody can go, and then you can trade that receipt. You can invest that receipt. You can do whatever you want with that receipt. But then at the end of the day, you can always go back and exchange for the native thing. And we always make sure that there's 1-to-1 ratio of the receipts to the native coins that are locked up, and we remove the counterparty risk and all that. But that's sort of our architecture is quite a bit different than any of the other projects in that regard.
So, one thing that I know about Wanchain is that you're focused on privacy, but you're also focused on fintech. So obviously there's some relationship between the two. But could you speak a little bit about what makes your platform so appropriate for fintech specifically?
Well, privacy is really fundamental for fintech. It's just not the case that when you execute a trade on the NASDAQ that should be public information. But when you sell something on Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin, that is public information. And with the vast majority, like the number of forensic tools that are coming out, it's becoming easier and easier to parse these pseudonymous addresses together and figure out, okay, this supposedly pseudonymous address, you can tie it to someone's actual identity, and then to know exactly when they're buying and selling different assets, to know, how many assets they have. And that's not only a moral problem, that actually can be a physical security problem. And so we think privacy is a fundamental building block for asset managers, crypto asset managers, whom are one of our primary customers who we're building these tools for. And that's to protect them. And I know, for example, that like there's funds that have part of their fund strategy is that they watch the addresses of the other funds. So if one fund knows, Fund A knows that Fund B is a very early investor and big supporter in XYZ project, and they start selling their tokens, well, maybe they've got some insider information. So there's a lot of everybody sort of watching everybody, and I think that problem for fund managers is only going to increase as these forensic tools get more advanced.
It's interesting that you bring that up. I was just reading an article on Bitcoin.com, and the title of the article says KYC requirements are making ICOs riskier, not safer. And the thought behind this is now now we're not only in moving a bunch of money around, but we're collecting and storing sensitive data and information on high net worth individuals, which makes it a huge honeypot for hackers. It's like an extra bonus gift.
Primary target for a lot of these hackers is this KYC AML information. That's what they're going after.
Right. And so, well, I'd be interested to get your commentary on this because the whole idea was to make things safer, to make sure that we know that money is not being laundered by drug dealers and that sort of thing. But what it in fact is doing is it's exposing investors to more potential risk of having their identity stolen. What are some comments you have on that?
I think we see this debate happening outside of crypto as well, right? I mean, a lot of time, anytime you're going to collect data in a sort of central honeypot type repository, that's really the only way governments and regulators know how to deal with data, and companies too. And it inherently is going to create risk. So I don't think it's unique to crypto. However, I do think that crypto might have some solutions to this problem. Like imagine, for example, like some using like ZK snarks or some zero knowledge proofs to be able to prove that somebody, passes a KYC AML test without ever actually like looking at their information. And I know that there's a few folks working on things like that. I mean, it does raise question marks about like who is actually going to trust this thing, but and would the regulators who these documents are intended for trust it? But we're witnessing one of the things that's really amazing about this space is we've never had so much investment into things like encryption and data analysis, and these like bleeding edge data scientists are all getting extremely well funded. Whereas before, these were the things that were like relegated to, PhD projects. And so I think that we're quite likely to see some of these solutions to large systemic problems sort of pop out of our industry.
Well, you are always a wealth of knowledge here, and time flies when we're having fun. As we're kind of wrapping up here for a moment, could you talk a little bit about the future of Wanchain? I know that you're releasing an ICO platform, and you're kind of looking at focusing on that. What do you see in the next 12 months on the roadmap?
It's it's a really exciting time because I think right now, like after having just launched the platform, now it's really about just building the ecosystem and pulling in all the right partners, and about being very mindful and strategic about which partners we're pulling in and incentivizing. I mean, it's an open platform, so it's permissionless. Anyone's free to build on it. But I think that we're definitely working to try to make sure that we've got some really being mindful with our strategy. And pulling in those partners that are going to reinforce each other and reinforce the ecosystem. So the next 12 months should be really exciting. A lot of interesting projects that we're talking to right now and starting to collaborate with that are I think going to kind of propel Wanchain to the next level. There's a lot of things for them to utilize within Wanchain, whether it's the privacy or the Crosschain or our ties to China. So we've been having a lot of really positive feedback from the teams that we've been talking to. And so that's really encouraging because I know there's a lot of competition in the space. There's a lot of different smart contract platforms out there emerging. So it's really cool to see the positive feedback we've been getting from the projects. And so yeah, we're working on a bunch of different ways of really scaling the ecosystem, not only pulling the right pieces, but one of the things that is true of crypto is that it's moving faster than just about probably any industry in the history of the world. And I expect that pace of change to only accelerate. So I'm constantly thinking about scale and how we can move with, how we can like leverage every resource that we have and move at like an incredible pace. So we're just starting to announce a small we had the Kyber was this big announcement. There will be more. We're a platform, so it's going to be a stream of announcements over our lifetime if we're successful. But I'm really trying to gear things up and set the foundation so that those announcements and those partnerships and those projects building on Wanchain will really accelerate over the coming 12 months.
Dustin Byington from Wanchain.org. Where can our audience go to stay up to date on the latest developments?
Yeah, Wanchain.org is great, and there you'll find links to our Twitter, Wanchain_org, and make sure you're looking for the blue check mark. There are lots of scam Wanchain Twitter accounts. There's even like a scam Binance account that was just Burnance, R7N, that was trying to get people to saying they were going to be listed on exchanges. And I guess we probably should have touched about exchanges, since that's kind of every post we put up, people were asking, Wanchain. The fact of the matter is we don't really,
right.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, it's out of our hands. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was in tomorrow or in a couple weeks. So it shouldn't be. I'd be really shocked if it was too much longer than that, but frankly, I couldn't tell you because I don't know which exchange or when. But so as soon as we do know, we'll be letting you know on like our Twitter or we have a Telegram announcement channel as well as a Telegram chat, Discord, and we've got Facebook, and those are the big ones. Also, we have an Instagram. My Twitter's at Dustin_Byington. I put some stuff up there about Wanchain from time to time, so feel free to engage with us. And we're always looking for more, like community managers, business development type folks. We are a platform, smart contract platform, so we really do, again, always thinking about finding the right people to help us scale that globally.
Great stuff. Thanks for coming on here and sharing so much information and insights, and we look forward to seeing how Wanchain develops in the future, Dustin. Great.
Thanks, Josh. I'm looking forward to the conference, and I'll be talking a little bit more there on my Saturday night talk at the dinner about the Kyber announcement.
Good stuff. That'll do it for this episode. We'll see you next time on the Future Tech Podcast.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.